The story begins on a snowy twilight. A young man walks along a foggy mountain path. He wears a worn ancient robe and carries a heavy sword on his back. He does not know who he is or where he came from. He only possesses a broken jade pendant that never glows. He feels a strange emptiness as if a vast ocean has dried up inside the chest. The villagers call him the Nameless Immortal. After many years, he arrives at a fair in a peaceful village. Suddenly, the lifeless pendant near his chest glows with an intense green light. Amidst the crowd, he sees an ordinary girl. The girl was singing. Her name was Lynn. Upon seeing her, a sharp pain begins in the Nameless Immortal's head. The sound of a 1,000-year-old cry begins to echo in his ears. There was a deserted ancient temple situated on a steep mountain ledge. It was surrounded by black fog and moss had grown over the ancient stone. The Nameless Immortal stood alone on the broken veranda of the temple. He wore a long black robe that fluttered in the wind. He held that mysterious jade pendant in his hand and looked toward the sky. In his eye was the exhaustion of 1,000 years. He could not remember his name and did not know his destination. At that moment, the wind changed its direction. Lynn climbed up the temple stair. She had lost her way while searching for herbal plants in the mountain. In her hand was a small lantern, its flame nearly extinguished by the fire's wind. As soon as Lynn stepped into the temple courtyard, the lifeless pendant in Immortal's hand suddenly began to pulse with a bright blue light. Seeing the light of the pendant, Immortal turned around quickly. At that exact moment, Lynn's lantern went out, and in fear of the darkness, she stamped over a stone while backing away. The Nameless Immortal moved in the blink of an eye and grabbed Lynn by the waist, saving her from the fall. The entire world seemed to stand still at that moment. In the dark temple, only the blue pendant in the Nameless Immortal's hand was glowing. In that magical light, they looked into each other's eye. The Nameless Immortal felt that he had seen these eyes before, perhaps in a dream or perhaps in another life. Lynn felt that there was a strange familiar warmth in the stranger's arm. Lynn asked in a trembling voice, "Who are you? The light in your hand, what is it?" Without taking his eyes off hers, the Nameless Immortal replied in a low voice, "I do not know who I am, but for the first time in the last 1,000 years, my pendant has awakened like this in someone's presence. Who are you, Lynn?" He uttered her name unconsciously, which left Lynn startled. As a rainstorm began outside, they took shelter inside the temple. The Nameless Immortal created a blue fireball with his magical power. Seeing Lynn's wet hair drying in the heat of the fire, he felt a strange affection. Lynn noticed many old scars to the Nameless Immortal's hand. She gathered courage and said, "Your eyes say you are carrying a very heavy burden. If you have forgotten your name, I will call you by a new name. Your name from today is Xiang." Xiang leaned toward Lynn, their faces very close. Xiang whispered, "After seeing you, I feel like I don't want to remember my name anymore. I only want to remember this moment." Xiang began to stay around Lynn. He realizes there was a strange pull between them. He took Lynn to a hidden valley in the mountains where cherry blossoms bloom forever. Jiang began to teach Lynn how to control her internal energy. He stood behind Lynn, holding her hand to teach her how to swing a sword at the speed of the wind. When Lynn lost her balance by mistake, Jiang held her. The scent of Lynn's hair brought back life to Xiang's old dead memories. Xiang whispered in Lynn's ear, "Your heartbeat is running faster than my sword. Lynn, do not be afraid. I am here." Lin looked back and smiled, and in that smile, Jiang felt for the first time that this one moment of human life was much more precious than immortality. On a quiet night, they sat on a floating rock watching the sky. Jiang moved his hand, gathering the star of the sky in a place to show Lin a bright diamond-like ring. Lin asked, "If you can remember your name, will you leave me and return to heaven?" Jiang placed his hand on Lin's palm and said, "Heaven gave me 1,000 years of loneliness, Lin. Even if I remember my name, only you will have the right to that name." With his magical power, Jiang took Lin into a beautiful dream of his. There, they were walking over the clouds. In the dream, they heard the bell of an old temple. Jiang drew Lin close and kissed her gently on the forehead. At that moment, the world around them brightened. They looked into each other's eyes and realized that this love was not just of the present. It was an unfinished quest of 1,000 years. Lin said, "I don't think I know you only in this birth. My soul says I have been looking for you for 1,000 years." Touching Lin's hand to his cheek, Jiang said, "If I lose my memory again, just hold my hand. I will fall in love with you all over again." When the love between Jiang and Lin was at its peak, the wheel of fortune began to turn. On a specific night, a huge blood moon appeared across the sky. Jiang felt the spiritual energy inside his body becoming uncontrollable. The jet pendant on his chest suddenly turned from blue to blood red and began to vibrate instantly. Jiang fell to his knees in agony. His cry made the entire valley tremble. Lin ran to Jiang without fear. She saw black smoke coming out of Jiang's body. It was the remnant of the ancient demon god whom Jiang had sealed 1,000 years ago. Lin hugged Jiang and pressed her forehead against his. She began to flow her own small amount of spiritual energy into Jiang. At the touch of Lin's holy love, the heavenly seal in Jiang's brain shattered into pieces. Thousands of memories from 1,000 years flashed before his eyes at once. Hidden behind the calm nature of his current life was a catastrophic past. 1,000 years ago, two poles of the universe were the immortal realm and the demon realm. The enmity between them was eternal, but in a cruel irony of fate, an invincible immortal warrior and a magical beautiful demoness fall in love with each other. Jiang was born as the fruit of their forbidden love. Two opposite powers flowed in Jiang's body. On one side, the heavenly purity of his father, and on other side, the primal demonic vigor of his mother. He was not fully immortal, not fully demon. He was a half demon. This union between immortals and demons was against the laws of nature. When this news became known, the sky and winds of the two worlds trembled in a catastrophic war. The gods could not accept it, and the demons saw it as a betrayal. Blood rain began to fall from the sky, and darkness descended upon the earth. To save Jiang, his mother protected him with her last strength, and his father hid him in a sacred place. However, the demonic entity inside Jiang had become so powerful that it became impossible to control. When the demonic entity inside Jiang wanted to burst out like volcanic lava, the heavenly gods sensed disaster. They realized that if this child grew up, neither side would be able to control him. He would be invincible, and the two worlds would be burned to ashes in his wrath. To protect his child from the hands of the gods, Jiang's father sacrificed his immortality and placed a heavenly seal in Jiang's brain. Jiang's mother, before collapsing into the lap of death, has stained a white transparent gemstone with the last drop of her blood. She knew that one day this lock might break. Therefore, she infused that pendant with her maternal affection so that Jiang would never become a complete demon. Jiang was sent to a lonely valley on earth in the guise of an ordinary human child. Jiang began to grow up in an ordinary village on earth, unaware that an epic battle of destruction and creation was flowing in his blood. From childhood, Jiang was different from others. His physical strength was abnormal, and an unusual glow of power was sometimes seen in his eyes. The village boys used to tease him, calling him cursed. His only possession was that reddish jade pendant around his neck, which would calm his restless mind upon touch. One day, a gang of bandits attacked the village and killed his foster father. In that grief and anger, the first seal inside Jiang broke. Black smoke emitted from his body, and he alone turned the entire bandit force into dust in an instant. Seeing his own terrifying form, he became terrified and went to the deep mountain, leaving human society. There, he found the ancient Asura power left behind by his mother. As time passed, Jiang's appearance began to change. His hair turned white, and a dark empire was created around him. He became the Demon King. The heavenly gods were terrified by Jiang's right. They sent thousands of immortal warriors to destroy Jiang. But no one could stand against Jiang. With one strike of his Asura sword, the heavenly army would be torn apart. Jiang was then insane with revenge. He began to hold the gods responsible for the separation of his parents. At that time, Lin, the most powerful and holy goddess of heaven, was sent as the general on behalf of the gods. Lin was the idol of beauty but was invincible in war. At the horizon of the sky, a catastrophic war begins between Jiang and Lin. The universe begins to tremble with the clash of Lin's holy arrows of life and Jiang's dark energy. The stars of the sky seems to be falling due to the collision of the black mist sword and Lin's holy light sword. Jiang was then drunk on revenge. Lin was being pushed back by every strike of him. But at one point in the war, when Jiang was about to strike Lin, he froze, finding his lost existence in the calm mercy of Lin's eye. Taking advantage of that distraction, Lin's sword pierced the Jiang's shoulder. A stream of blood soaked Jiang's black cloth, and Jiang's sword stopped near Lin's neck. He seems to be looking deep into those eyes, but there was no sign of pain on his face. He just kept staring steadily at Lin. Lin was startled. She had not expected Jiang to take the hit himself instead of striking her. Jiang's lips moved, but no sound came out. Gradually, his body becomes lifeless, and he collapsed onto Lin's shoulder. Lin had the opportunity then to behead Jiang. This is what the gods wanted. She could not kill an unconscious enemy. Lin wrapped him in her heavenly cloak. She took him to a mysterious ethereal prison located at the peak of the Himalayas. In the ethereal prison, Jiang was bound with a magical chain. Lin observed him from a distance every day. She was surprised to see that this terrifying demon emperor muttered the names of his parents in his sleep, and a strange, peaceful light emitted from the jade pendant on his neck. One day, Jiang regained consciousness. Seeing himself in a state of imprisonment, he did not revel. When Lin came to clean his wound, Jiang only asked one question in a calm voice. Why was there that mercy in your eyes that day? You were the general of the immortals, so why didn't you finish me? Lin could not answer, but that was the beginning. Through daily conversation, the healing of Jiang's wound with Lin's holy power, and hearing the tragedy of Jiang's life, Lin felt that inside the one the world knew as a demon, a soul-seeking justice was actually hidden. During those lonely days in the prison, a strange world of affection was created between Jiang and Lin. The terrifying dark power of demonic energy inside Jiang would occasionally go out of control. At those times, both his eyes would turn blood-red, and the black smoke coming out of his body would darken the entire horizon. When Jiang bunched his head against the wall in his pain, Lin did not move away in fear. Instead, she walked towards Jiang with calm step. She would place her two holy hands on Jiang's forehead. The golden light emitting from Lin's body would absorb Jiang's black smoke. One night, while groaning in pain, Jiang grabbed Lin's hand tightly. His nail dug into Lin's skin, but Lin did not move. She began to sing an ancient heavenly tune in a low voice. Gradually, Jiang's breathing became normal. He climbed down with his head on Lin's lap. For the first time, Jiang felt a moment of peace. Days passed, months passed. Lin realized that Jiang was no longer that cruel demon. The gods could order the permanent destruction of Jiang at any time. On a dark new moon night, Lin unlocked the magical chains of the prison. Jiang looked at Lin in surprise. Lin said, "You are free now, Jiang. You can escape from this heavenly prison." Jiang asked, "Will you not come with me?" Lin replied, "No, Jiang. I am the general of the immortals. My duty is here. But I want you to leave the path of revenge. If you start the destruction again to take revenge for what happened, I will not be able to save you." Jiang stared into Lin's eye for a long time. Jiang vanished behind the clouds before Lin's eye. But destiny is very cruel. The gods found out about the secret released by Lin. As soon as the news of Jiang's escape arrived, the gods became furious. Lin was captured and brought to the judgment hall of heaven. She was declared a traitor. The king of the gods roared, "By releasing a demon, you have dishonored heaven, Lin. The punishment for your crime will be agony equivalent to death."